Hello, everyone. This is Mamta Sharma from ICHARS Support Foundation. I'm so excited to bring to you this third episode of TruTalks, which is a special interview series to answer questions about various aspects of life. We have with us Nitin Shah, founder and director of ICHARS and ICHARS Support Foundation. Welcome, Nitin, to the third episode.
Thank you, Mamta. Nice to see you here again today.
Yes, same here. And welcome everyone who's tuned in to this third episode of True Talks, in which we are going to focus on how to manage our mental states. In other words, our thoughts and emotions, and how you can be in the right mental state to achieve your goals and make your dreams come true. If you have any suggestions or questions, please leave them in the comments below, and we'll try to answer them as we go along. So, Nitin, in the last two episodes, we have been talking about the importance of managing our thoughts and emotions vis-a-vis our goals and purpose. And
True.
isn't it the most important episode we are doing?
This is probably the most important episode that we are doing. Correct.
Perfect. So let's dive right into it. So, how do we manage our thoughts and emotions?
So, before we talk about managing our thoughts and emotions, we need to kind of understand a couple of things about thoughts and emotions,
Hmm.
right? And that's what I want to talk about first.
Hmm.
One, while a lot of us talk about changing our thoughts or managing our thoughts, a lot of us look at our thoughts and emotions from the point of view of negative, or that these emotions are bad, right?
Hmm.
Uh, we personally don't believe there are any bad emotions or bad thoughts.
Wait, but we keep hearing don't think negative, and what about things like anger, which are like, I mean, most people think that anger is negative, and you don't.
All right. So, no, I don't think anger is negative. I don't actually think there's any emotion that is negative per se.
Okay.
Uh, every emotion serves a purpose. And
Hmm.
as long as they're serving a purpose, well, they're there to serve that purpose. You can't really call them negative. The problem happens when we are not able to understand those emotions and we get stuck in those emotions.
Okay. So can you explain like a bit more?
All right. So let's look at it in terms of where do we have these emotions from? What are the sources of these emotions? So when we have certain problems in our life,
Hmm.
tell me what could be the reasons behind those problems? Who would be responsible for those problems?
The circumstances like the current virus outbreak.
Correct. So one option will be situations.
Yeah.
What else?
People around me.
So people around me. So situations, others.
Um. Sometimes I could be the source of my own problem, so I may have done something.
Correct. So there are times when we make mistakes and
Hmm.
we may be responsible for our own problems.
Hmm.
And then lastly, at times we have problems related to future, and that's
Hmm.
the place where we can't really fix up a responsibility,
True.
right? Because those events have not yet happened, so we don't know who to hold responsible, whether it will be I, others, or situation.
Hmm.
So broadly speaking, we can actually divide the source of our problems into these four categories. And in each of these sources, there's a specific set of emotions that we experience, right?
Okay.
So let's
Okay.
say I am responsible for my problem. What
Hmm.
emotion will I experience over here?
Hmm. I'll feel guilty about it.
So probably guilt, regret,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? Now, what is the purpose of this guilt or regret? What is this guilt and regret trying to do?
So I feel guilty because I think I should not have done something or reacted in a certain manner.
Perfect, which means
Hmm.
that I'm feeling guilty or I'm
Hmm.
regretting something because of a decision that I've taken or an
Hmm.
act that I've done.
Hmm.
And my mind is trying to tell me this is not an act that I should have done. And in
Hmm.
future, if a similar situation arises, I should
Hmm.
not be making the same choice.
True.
So, would it be fair to say that guilt is stopping me from making the same mistake again?
Hmm.
Now, is
Yeah.
that negative?
Not really. So guilt is serving a purpose here, so to say, right?
Correct. So, as long as guilt is serving a purpose, it may make me feel bad, which is true,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? But that doesn't
Hmm.
make the emotion negative. The emotion is still serving a purpose.
Hmm.
right? And in the example of guilt, the purpose it's serving is that it's stopping me from making the same mistake again. It's
Hmm.
basically helping me learn a new way of dealing something, and is asking me to apply the new way going forward in future rather than depending upon the behavior that makes me feel guilty.
Hmm. But where will the new way come from? Because if I knew, I would have already done that.
So that's where we need to sit and we need to be able to observe what we have done and what we could have done differently. Let's maybe take an example to make it easier,
Okay. Okay.
right? Let's say there's a father who slapped his child
Hmm.
because the child was crying.
Hmm.
Okay, and one of the father's friend saw the
Hmm.
father slapping the child,
Okay.
and now the friend came and told the father that you should not be slapping your child like this.
Hmm.
Matlab, he may carry this all his life. It may have a really, really negative impact on the child.
Hmm.
Now, all of a sudden, the father starts feeling guilty that I
Hmm.
should not have slapped my child.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Right? Next time, when the father is with the child,
Hmm.
and if the child is crying,
Hmm.
wouldn't the guilt immediately stop the father from
Hmm.
slapping the child?
Yep. Right.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Now, the problem happens because the child is still crying. The father doesn't want to slap the child, but the
Hmm.
father doesn't know any alternate way of dealing with a crying child.
Hmm.
So
True.
while the guilt stops the father initially, but the
Hmm.
fact that the child is crying also means the father starts feeling angry.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
Hmm.
at some point, that anger will become so strong that it will overpower the guilt.
Hmm. True.
And that's when we end up slapping the child
Again.
again. And this
Hmm.
time, probably the slap will be a bit harder because you have been trying to suppress that anger for some time.
I'm sure many parents can relate to this.
So now, if the parent or if the father in this case
Hmm.
would have spoken to the friend and asked him, I don't know how to deal with a crying child. And if you
Hmm.
would have learned a better way of dealing with a crying child, or even
Hmm.
better, if you would have learned a way to ensure that he's able to understand the child better, so that the
Hmm.
child doesn't even have the need to cry in the same situation.
Hmm.
Now, would the father have a problem?
No.
Wouldn't
If
the
he has
guilt
an alternative.
correct? So, wouldn't the guilt in itself may have actually acted as a way to help the father grow as a person and improve his relationship with the child?
Yeah, actually. Yes.
Yes. Now, would you call guilt negative?
Hmm. True.
Right? So the
Yeah.
problem over here with guilt per se is that many a times we get stuck in the emotion and we
Hmm.
don't look for an alternate way of being able to deal with the same situation. In which
Hmm.
case we keep feeling guilty, but we keep
Hmm.
repeating the same pattern again and again because we don't really have any other way of dealing with that situation.
Hmm. True.
Right? So when we are
True.
talking about emotions, and specifically right now we're talking about guilt,
Hmm.
uh, one of the best ways of working with guilt is to actually understand what is that guilt trying to teach you and
Hmm.
then learn it and apply it in your life.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, while
Hmm.
I'm talking about this model, and this model, by the way, is called Flip, which
Hmm.
basically is about understanding the emotions and helping us shift our focus from the problem to the solution. We are talking about emotions which are rational. In the sense, for example, there are people who will come and tell you that I feel guilty and I don't even know why do I feel guilty.
Hmm.
Okay. Now, in that case, what we are discussing right now may not be directly applicable simply
Hmm.
because you will first have to find out where is that guilt coming from and then you will have to start working backwards from there.
Hmm.
Right. So, the model that we are talking about will need to be contextualized slightly for that purpose.
Okay.
Okay. Now, this was about I, right?
Hmm.
Um, the second one was others. When
Yes.
others are responsible for a problem, in my opinion,
Hmm.
then what do I feel?
Angry, frustrated.
Correct?
Hmm.
Now, I feel angry because wouldn't it be true to say that I expected something from them
Hmm.
and they were either not capable or not willing to fulfill my expectations?
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
So, would it be fair to say that unfulfilled expectations end up leading to anger in most cases?
Hmm.
and which in other words means that I have not been able to accept people around me for who they are.
Hmm.
So if lack of acceptance is the source of problem, is the source of
Hmm.
anger, what is the
Hmm.
solution?
Acceptance. But
Correct.
the moment
Now,
I say it, I again have that soft inner voice inside my head which says, "But how?"
so good. So that's actually a very good question because that's a place where a lot of people get stuck. The idea of acceptance is not something that is new. We are not the first ones to talk about it, right? It's
Hmm.
existed in psychology and spirituality for years. In fact, many
Hmm.
religions talk about acceptance and forgiveness for years, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
The problem is that a lot of us don't really understand what acceptance really means. We confuse acceptance with resignation. That's the first place where we have a problem.
Hmm.
Now, what do I mean by this? A lot of people end up saying that because I couldn't do anything, I had to just accept it. That's not acceptance, that's resignation.
Yeah, like
And
giving up.
and like giving up. Now, that resignation, that giving up only makes you feel helpless. That doesn't really help you solve your problem.
Hmm. True.
So acceptance does not mean that I have to accept someone else and I have to reject myself. Acceptance actually means I need to learn to accept the other person and accept myself both. And after accepting both, I have to see what do I want to do from here. So resignation will take your choices away.
Hmm.
Acceptance will create choices for you. And the choices that acceptance creates would
Hmm.
include either realizing that maybe what I'm expecting is
Hmm.
not really that important and I can let go of my expectations. I can realign my expectations as a choice, not as a not from a point of helplessness, but from a point that I understand it's not important.
Okay. You'll have
Which
to
is
elaborate that a little.
I'll give an example after this.
Okay.
But
Okay.
just to summarize, that one is that I realign my expectations based on my reality, knowing that maybe my expectations are, well, I'm asking for a bit too much, and even if it doesn't get fulfilled, it's okay. But it's coming from a position of choice,
Hmm.
right?
Okay.
Is is a primary requirement for me. It's very important. No matter what, I can't give that up.
Yeah, exactly. I was just thinking about it. So, what if I'm talking about respect? I expect a certain amount of respect, let us say in a relationship, and I'm not getting that. So, accepting that I will not get it is very difficult for me.
So, one, uh, are you not getting that respect in a particular manner in which you're asking for, or are you
Hmm.
not getting respect? They are two different things. There are
Hmm.
times when you have a specific idea of respect that is not being fulfilled, and then you realize, well, wait, the other person is actually respecting me, but in a different way. So, in that case, you could realign your expectations, not with respect, but how that respect is being expressed to you, right?
Hmm.
And in
Correct.
second situation, it may so happen that you are actually not receiving the respect that you require, that you would
Hmm.
want,
Hmm.
right? In
Hmm.
which case you realize that, well, the other person has their own choice.
Hmm.
They are not willing to give me that respect. I
Hmm.
am looking for that respect, in which case I don't want to be with a person like that. So I'm still not fighting with them. I'm
Hmm.
understanding it's their choice. But I can then make a choice to move out of that situation or move out of that relationship,
Hmm. Correct.
right? And I understand at times this is easier said than done.
Mm-hmm.
But if you are in a relationship where your primary needs are not being met,
Hmm.
what are you really doing in that relationship? And I'm not just talking about romantic relationship. I'm also talking about, for example, office relationship between you and your boss, right?
Hmm.
If you realize that what your primary requirement is from that job, that requirement is not being met, then shouldn't you actually be looking for a new job?
Hmm. True. True.
Nothing can tell me what will be the problem over here. The moment I ask someone that, all right, so if you are not getting what your primary requirement is, look for a job. You know, what else can you do? And the person says that, well, maybe I can look for another job. What
Hmm.
will be the problem that they would come up with? Why aren't they able to look for a job?
इतने आराम से कैसे मिलेंगी लाइक we are probably so let's say in the current scenario so we are fearing a recession already
Perfect. So
so
then all of a sudden we hear people saying that, while you're saying that I can move out of that job or I can move out of that relationship,
Hmm.
I don't think I can find someone better or a job which is better than this. Now, if
Hmm.
you already know that this is the best job that you can have,
Hmm.
then please realign your expectations, right? Because you're already saying this is the best that I can get.
Hmm.
On the other
True.
hand, you have an alternate option, and the option is that, all right, today you may not be able to get a better job than this,
Hmm.
but you can start working towards developing skills so that you can get a better job in future.
Hmm.
Right, so I understand you may have to go through that bit of a pain for the next couple of months till you develop the right skills and
Hmm.
you are able to go out and find another job. That I understand, right?
Hmm.
But to say that I have been in this job for years because I
Hmm.
don't think I can find a better job, then
Hmm.
either you are asking for something that you yourself know is not really required, or you are
Hmm.
not doing something correct to move out of there.
True.
I hope this is making sense.
Yes, this is right.
Yes, and the same applies to relationship. And I understand. I'm not saying that leaving your partner is the first choice. That's not the point.
Hmm.
Okay. As I said, you would want to sit with your partner. You would want to realign your expectations in a way in which you are able to fulfill your partner's expectation, and your
Hmm.
partner is able to fulfill your expectations. You can kind of come to a like a common minimum program when two political parties come together with completely different agendas,
Hmm.
something on those lines. But you agree that this is the bare minimum that we'll do for each other,
So
right?
you're saying we
Where
can actually sit and talk with our, I mean, like with our husbands and wives or boyfriends and girlfriends and have this conversation where we can tell each other that, let's say, this is what I can do for you and this is what I expect you to do for me.
correct. And then when they tell you the same thing,
Hmm.
work towards a win-win situation. And
Okay.
not just romantic partners and husband wife, and you could also do it with your parents, with your kids,
Yeah. So any
right?
relationships.
Any relationship. So think of it this way: when we get into a corporate agreement, that's a
Mm-hmm.
relationship between two corporates, right?
Sure, correct.
We sit and do such detailed charting of our expectations and who will do what and what role will be played by whom.
Oh, we have legal contract, like legally binding contracts.
Perfect. And we don't do the same thing with our relationships. Shouldn't we actually be sitting and talking about our expectations in our relationships?
Hmm. But Nitin, don't say so. Say you said parents. So aren't parents and children, so the both the partners in the relationship, shouldn't they like? So isn't it like universally defined?
Is it? If it was universally defined, then why would we be having problems in the first place?
Yeah.
Right. And
Right.
also, no two partners have the same expectations from each other.
Hmm.
No two kids will have the same expectations from their parents.
Mm, yeah. True.
Right. So it's important to be able to set those expectations correctly. And then see if both of you can agree to come to a common ground. That's
Hmm.
brilliant. That works for both of you. That doesn't mean that you will still not have any fights or any problems in your life. You will have differences
Hmm.
of opinion. You'll have to find a way to be able to deal with that. But we
Hmm.
will talk more about this tomorrow in the love and relationship wala topic, because then we will actually be able to talk about communication and how all of these aspects come up. But to summarize this, with anger, the idea is to be able to uh, accept yourself and the other person completely, and
Hmm.
then based on that make a decision whether you want to continue in that relationship by realigning your expectations to current equation, or
Hmm.
you want to move out,
Mm-hmm. True.
right? And as I said, so when it comes to jobs, people would say, but I wouldn't get a job,
Hmm.
right? Which actually brings us to the next part, that the situation is such that jobs are not available in the market.
Hmm.
So when situations are responsible for our problem, what do we feel?
Helpless.
Perfect. And we feel helpless because we don't have the skills to be able to deal with the current set of situations.
Hmm.
If we had the skills to be able to handle the current set of situations, will we feel helpless?
No.
So then what is the solution for helplessness?
Acquire skills.
Perfect. So isn't helplessness in a way helping you understand that there are certain skills that you're lacking and that you need to develop?
Yeah. Hmm.
Correct. Now, the thing with developing skills is this is where motivation comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Because in order to develop skills, you'll have to put in efforts, you'll have to work. And in
Hmm.
order to work, you will need motivation.
Hmm.
We already covered how to develop motivation to some extent in the video in the live session yesterday on goal
Hmm.
setting and goal
Hmm.
accomplishment,
Hmm. Hmm.
right?
Hmm. Yes,
And
yes.
we also spoke about the fact that at times our thoughts and our emotions also come in the way of us acquiring our skills.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So as I talk about specific techniques to be able to manage thoughts and emotions, I
Hmm.
will also cover and address them in some time
Okay.
today itself.
All right.
All right. So
Hmm.
that's about helplessness.
Hmm.
And then we are left with future. Now,
Hmm.
when something, if we feel that we'll have a problem in future, what do we
Hmm.
experience? What do we feel?
Hmm. Scared, anxious.
So scared, anxious, fear,
Hmm.
and we are feeling anxious, afraid, or scared because the future is uncertain,
Yes.
which means we have not planned for it.
Yeah.
So plan.
You make it sound so simple.
Yeah, but it is simple, right? It is that if you know that you're uncertain, if the uncertainty about the future is making you feel uncomfortable, then
Hmm.
the first step to take is plan. I understand planning by itself may not be enough,
Hmm.
but trying to do anything before you plan for the future, when you're
Hmm.
feeling anxious,
Hmm.
you're going to the 10th step before going to the first step.
Hmm. But what about scenarios, Nitin, like the current lockdown, or the so it happened globally. We did not get any time to plan for it. It just happened. Uh, and because we did not have any time to plan for it, it has happened for the first time in most of our lifetimes, like most of the people who are alive today, their lifetimes. And so how do you what do you do about those situations? Do they fall into this category that we are talking about?
They do. So they do because you can club this and the
Hmm.
previous one together, right? So
Okay.
what I'm talking about is this,
Hmm.
that people are not today anxious. If you're anxious about the future, you're not anxious about the COVID situation today. Most
Hmm.
people are worried about it because when this settles down, will
Hmm.
we ever come back to normalcy? What will happen to my finances, my income, my business?
Hmm.
Will companies lay off and will I lose my job?
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Hmm.
what we are worried about is not really the present per se. In present, if you're worried, then that's more about safety, security,
Yeah, right.
right? And for that, the government is very clearly indicated. WHO has clearly indicated what steps do you need to follow,
Correct.
right? So that
Correct.
current level of anxiety may, I understand that level of anxiety, but that's not as much about the future.
Hmm.
That's about present. And that then boils down to either whether I'm doing enough and
Hmm.
whether I'm able to manage my thoughts and emotions or not, which we are coming to in another couple of minutes.
Hmm.
Right? But if the anxiety is about future, then I need to sit and plan. I have like the complete day to myself.
Hmm.
Imagine the detailed plans that I can create for myself in terms of how I'm going to cope up with the post COVID-19 scenario,
Hmm. True.
right? And if I'm able to plan for it, then it will also give me a clear understanding of what skills do I lack right now to be able to execute those plans in future.
Hmm.
And then I can go back and start developing those skills, which also not just takes away my anxiety for future, it can also take away my helplessness for the present.
Hmm. True.
Make sense?
Yes.
Right? Now, at the same time, I understand there are times when people will have plans and the plans will not work out. Things will not happen as per your plan.
Hmm. Hmm.
Right?
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
if you have a plan,
Hmm.
then it's a good idea to keep faith that things will work out as per your plan, which is again managing your mental state.
Hmm.
And I understand there are places where things will not work out as per your plan.
Hmm.
That is the place where you need to have the confidence that, well, whatever happens, I'm going to find a way to work around it.
Hmm.
Right? And that confidence again becomes your ability to manage your emotional state.
True.
Right? So, is this understanding clear till here that we don't really believe that any emotion is per se bad?
Hmm.
Okay, emotions are serving a purpose. if we are not able to understand that purpose and we are not able to learn from it, then that they may create dysfunctionality in our life. But it's not the
Hmm.
mistake of the emotion, it's our inability to handle them.
Hmm. So you can look at them as like, say, indicators, or probably, like an alerting mechanism that your mind has created to help you understand what to do next. Can we say that?
Perfect.
Hmm.
To in most cases, obviously, at some in some cases there could be deeper emotional issues that people have, because of which a particular emotion has just got stuck in their system and
Hmm.
they're perpetually feeling it, right? In
Right.
those situations, it's basically an indicator that something, uh, some experience is kind of playing up which they've had in their life, and it's a good idea for them to then go and visit a therapist to help them get that sorted. But even there, that emotion is actually acting as an indicator for you to take action,
Hmm. True.
right?
Perfect. Right. So now that I know that, if I can identify the source of the problem, I would
Correct.
be able to understand what needs to be done, right?
Hmm.
But then how do I apply these learnings?
Okay. So the application of these learnings
Hmm.
will bring you back to managing of your thoughts and emotions,
Hmm. Okay.
right?
Hmm.
So let's say,
Hmm.
uh, let's take an example. So let's
Hmm.
say I have been smoking for the past few years,
Hmm.
all right, and that smoking has now created a health effect.
Yes. Okay.
I want to quit smoking,
Okay.
okay, but
Hmm.
so that's my learning. That stop smoking,
Hmm.
right? Now,
Hmm.
while I want to quit smoking,
Hmm.
every time I look at a cigarette, I have this thought in my head, "Aaj last, today is the
Hmm.
last one,"
Hmm.
right? And then I end up
Hmm.
smoking.
Hmm.
So while these thoughts and emotions are helping us learn in our life, at times these thoughts and emotions also come in the way of us applying our learning.
Hmm.
And that's the place where having specific strategies and techniques to manage our thoughts and emotions can be very useful.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
And that's what we are now going to focus on going forward.
Okay.
Right.
Perfect.
So
Yeah.
broadly speaking, when we talk
Hmm.
about managing our mental state, we divide mental state in two categories: thoughts and
Hmm.
emotions. Right.
Hmm.
I'm first going to
Hmm.
talk about thoughts.
Okay.
Uh, Remember, whatever thoughts and emotions we experience, there are
Hmm.
specific times when we have specific thoughts and specific emotions. It's unlikely that there's a particular thought or a particular emotion is being experienced by me for 24/7,
Hmm. Okay.
right?
Okay.
It's
Hmm.
possible in specific cases. For example, someone who has a generalized anxiety disorder or is having
Hmm.
depression, but then you're talking about issues where you should be visiting a therapist.
Hmm.
But in most cases in our day to day life, there are
Hmm.
specific places where we have specific thoughts and specific places where we experience specific emotions.
True.
So, when we talk about managing our thoughts and emotions, it's not about managing our thoughts and emotions completely. It's about being
Hmm.
able to manage our thoughts and emotions in those specific situations,
Right.
right? And
Right.
therefore, we need to be able to identify what those specific situations or triggers are.
Okay. Okay.
So, so let's talk about thoughts first, and then
Hmm.
we take it forward from there.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, let's say,
Hmm.
so yesterday we were talking about weight management, right?
Yeah.
So, let's say I like gulab jamuns.
Hmm.
I want to quit gulab jamuns.
Hmm.
Uh, when I see that gulab jamun, then I have
Hmm.
a thought, chal kha lete hain,
Hmm. Correct.
right? And because
Yeah.
of that thought, I end up eating.
Yep.
And I eat first, and then I have this thought in my head, ek aur.
Hmm.
And then I have second, and then I have this thought in my head, kya sahi lag raha hai? And then I have one more,
Hmm.
right? And then I keep eating it. So it reaches a place where I've eaten a lot more than what I should have eaten.
Hmm.
So would it be fair to say that when I looked at that gulab jamun, the first thought that chal kha lete hain, अच्छा दिख रहा है, is the
Hmm.
thought that led me to eating,
Yeah.
and the subsequent thoughts ensure that I continued eating?
Hmm.
What if I could change my first thought? So what if when I look at the gulab jamun, my first thought is एक बाइट खाऊं कि 10 गुलाब जामुन खाऊं, टेस्ट तो सेम ही रहने वाला है.
Hmm.
Now when I have that as a thought, isn't there a greater probability that I'll stop at the first thought?
Yes.
I'll stop at the first gulab jamun,
Hmm. 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 Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Similarly, yesterday we spoke about getting up in the morning.
Hmm.
So the moment the alarm rings, if my
Hmm.
first thought is 10 more minutes, then I continue
Hmm.
sleeping.
Hmm.
But if my first thought is, let's wake up, it will be fun, and I'm feeling very energetic, then will I be able
Hmm.
to sleep?
No.
Unlikely, right? So
Hmm.
what I need to do is not worry about my thoughts 24/7. I just
Hmm.
have to look at in which situations, what new thoughts do I need to be able to take the desired action,
Hmm. True.
right? Now, the question is, how do I change these thoughts?
Hmm.
So, one, we use a process called when then.
Okay.
Now, what is when then? Is
Hmm.
once we have identified what our trigger is. So, in this case, for example, the alarm rings in the morning.
Hmm.
That becomes the trigger. We I
Yeah.
we look at what will be the new thought that I would like to have, which will help me take action. So the
Hmm.
new thought is, let's say, when the alarm rings in the morning, my first thought should be, I'll be able to fit into the dress.
Hmm.
And if I have the image of that dress in my head, फिर तो उठ जाऊंगा.
Hmm.
So we
Absolutely.
convert this into perfect. So we convert this into a format. The format becomes when the trigger,
Hmm.
then I realize the new thought.
Okay. So
So in this
when the
case,
alarm rings,
hmm,
uh, I realize, uh, I realize that I'll be able to fit in the uh, dress that I've been thinking of.
correct. Or getting up in the morning will help me fit into that dress.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes more sense. Yes.
Right? So now
Yeah.
imagine if the alarm rang and the first thought
Hmm.
in your head was,
Hmm.
waking up now will help me fit into the dress. Would it
Hmm.
make it easier for you to wake up?
Oh, definitely.
Yes. And by the way, this is not something new. This has happened with all of us at some point or the other. People who would say that I find it very difficult to get up in the morning to go to a gym. The day they find out that the person that they like goes to the gym at 6 o'clock in the morning. Next day onwards, what
Hmm.
happens?
Yeah. So you're saying that it is because this time a different thought is playing in their head, right?
Correct. So this time when the alarm rings in the morning, the first thought is still usko dekhne ko milega. I'll be able to see him or her.
Right. But Nitin,
And
in
the
this
thought is so
case,
powerful, and that thought
yeah.
is so powerful that it actually makes me wake up.
Hmm. So, but in this case, the one that somebody I like or I want to meet is also going to the same gym. In this case, the second thought is also automatic. But when I am trying to think of the dress, so isn't this easier said than done? Because the first thought was very automatic. It comes up apne aap on its own. So
So
I
then
don't
the
create
process,
it consciously. So how do I ensure that that new thought is as automatic and it pops up on its own?
and that's where when then comes in. So think about it. When I say Hare Rama, the first thing that comes to your mind is,
Hare Krishna.
when I say जोर से बोलो.
जय माता दी.
Nowadays क्या चल रहा है?
फॉग चल रहा है.
Correct, right? So what's happened? Your mind has a very clear understanding of when the subsequent thought comes. So the moment you hear Hare Rama, your mind knows now I have to think of Hare Krishna.
Hmm.
When
Without
I
me
say
telling
Jor,
it.
without you telling it, when I say
Yes.
Jor se bolo, your
Hmm.
mind knows Jai Mata Di.
Hmm. Right.
When I say kya chal raha hai, you've seen that ad so many times now that your mind
Hmm.
naturally comes up with a thought, fog chal raha hai,
Hmm.
right? So what's
Hmm.
happened is we have worked with a trigger and a response mechanism here also. Our mind has a trigger that whenever
Hmm.
this trigger comes,
Hmm.
I have to think of this thought.
Hmm.
And we are using the exact same process with when then. With when, we are actually telling the mind what needs to happen.
Hmm.
And whenever this happens, what
Hmm.
should be the next thought that you should have, which is the then statement.
Hmm.
Making
Hmm.
sense?
Right.
Right?
It is, but
So
I
we
have
are
still not got how it is going to become like
automated.
automatic. Yes.
Correct. So the way to make it automated is to actually chant it in a rhythm. So the
Okay.
beauty of most things that get stuck in our head is that it's
Hmm.
rhythmic and that generally we have gone through it repetitively.
Oh, like the law of repetition, right?
Correct. So it's the law of repetition combined with the fact that
Hmm.
you're literally telling the mind
Hmm.
when this repetition has to come into action.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Right now, imagine if you were to keep telling yourself. So, and the idea is not that you have to say this to yourself when you are in a situation. The idea
Hmm.
is for you to be able to repeat this before you get into the situation. So, let's go back to gulab jamun. So, if I
Hmm.
want to have this thought
Hmm.
that टेस्ट तो सेम ही रहने वाला है एक पीस खाऊं कि 10 गुलाब जामुन खाऊं
Hmm.
right to try to think that when I have a gulab jamun in front of me is
Hmm.
an effort. I
Oh,
probably would not
massive.
remember it, right?
Yeah, I've tried doing it. नहीं होता है.
Correct. But what if I could chant it now when I don't have a gulab jamun in front of me? So while I'm traveling in a car and I'm stuck in a traffic, rather than abusing and accusing people on the road because they're not going to move faster only because I abuse or accuse them,
Hmm.
right? But if I sit over there and if I tell myself, whenever I see a gulab jamun, then I realize taste तो एक पीस और 10 पीसेस का सेम ही रहने वाला है.
Hmm.
Whenever I see a gulab jamun, then I realize the taste तो सेम ही रहने वाला है चाहे एक पीस खाऊं कि 10 पीस खाऊं. And if I keep repeating it, wouldn't it come a place where even in the middle of a night, if someone says gulab jamun and I say taste तो same ही रहने वाला है,
Oh, wow. That's
right?
brilliant. Yes.
So the idea is to repeat it in advance
Hmm.
so that when you are faced with that situation in your real life, the mind
Hmm.
already knows what it needs to do. You're not trying to tell the mind in the situation, you're telling the mind prior to that so that the mind
Hmm.
can help you when the time comes.
Okay. And how long do I have to keep repeating this?
So generally, I have seen that when you do this, like whenever you're free, do it for 2 days continuously.
Hmm. Hmm.
And generally, 2 days is more than enough. But the
Hmm.
easiest way to understand this is in
Hmm.
whenever you feel that if
Hmm.
randomly someone comes and tells you the trigger
Hmm.
and the new thought has come in your mind, you know that
Hmm.
this has happened. So I would generally actually tell. So, for example, if I am looking at changing my thought, I would tell
Hmm.
my wife that after three
Hmm.
days, just
Hmm.
tell me gulab jamun
No.
and ask me what is the first thought in your mind. So if the first thought in my mind is taste तो सेम ही रहने वाला है, then I know that
Hmm.
the association is built.
Oh, that's interesting. And it's not really difficult.
No, no,
It
it's
can be
actually
done.
very easy. In fact, this is one of the easiest ways to change your thoughts, and it's so easy that people miss out on it.
Hmm. Because when you started saying changing our thoughts, and I was like, oh my God, you're going to give us some complicated jargon and it's going to be really difficult. But it's so simple, is it?
It is.
Wow, that's interesting. But I have another question. So, is this like positive statements or affirmations? Because I've realized that positive affirmations don't really work for me.
So they are not really like affirmations. So while they
Hmm.
both are both affirmations and when then statements are based on the principle of repetition, there
Hmm.
are distinct differences between the two.
Okay.
In affirmations one, you are only
Hmm.
using positive sentences. You don't use
Hmm.
negative sentences at all, right?
Okay.
In when
Hmm.
then statement, at times you use a negative statement because that will help you do what you want to do.
For example.
So let's say I want to quit smoking,
Hmm.
okay, and I want to quit smoking for my children
Hmm.
because I know that it's not a good precedent for them. This is not a good
Hmm.
example for them that they see their father smoking,
Hmm.
right? Or I feel that it will be bad for their health.
Hmm.
Right? The problem with most smokers is they would tell you that when I'm smoking, I don't have this thought. I remember this after I've completed smoking,
Hmm. True.
right? Now, what if I create a statement saying, when I look at a cigarette, then I realize this is bad for my child?
Oh.
And
Okay.
if this statement is powerful enough, now would this be powerful enough for everyone? Obviously, the answer is no. So each person has to come up with their own then statement.
Hmm. 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 Hmm.
No
Hmm.
two people who want to quit smoking will have the exact same then statement. But you have to come
Hmm.
up with something which will be compelling for you, which will stop you from doing it. And then you are
Right.
just ensuring that that negative statement gets associated with that trigger. That whenever I look at a cigarette, then I realize,
Hmm.
well, it's bad for my kids. And if that is a powerful enough statement for me, then it will be difficult for me to smoke.
Hmm.
I had
Hmm.
someone once telling me that, Nitin, the thought that I have worked with now for smoking is, and
Hmm.
he told me that every time I smoke, I kind of tell myself, this is my last one.
Hmm.
So he says that he came up with a sentence saying that every time I look at my cigarette, I realize the last one was the last one.
Ah, that's smart.
Right? And he
Oh.
has repeated it so many times in his head that the moment he looks at the cigarette, the first thought is last one was the last one.
Hmm.
So this is one that in when then statement, we can also use negative sentences. We are not really too fixed up on the idea of only using a positive statement.
Hmm. Right.
Second, the other thing to keep in mind,
Hmm.
एक second, disturbance. Yeah. So the second thing to keep in mind is that in affirmations, these are generally just positive sentences, right? Your mind doesn't really know when to activate these sentences. It's like you have a program installed in your computer, but the computer doesn't know when to run it. With when we talk about when then, we are actually telling the program or we are actually telling the computer when does the computer need to play the program. So it's like when I double click on docx, then open it in Word file, right?
That's actually a great idea. Yeah.
Correct. So that's what I'm telling my mind that when I see the cigarette, then I
Hmm.
realize, or when I hear the alarm ringing in the morning, then I realize.
Hmm.
Also remember the word is I realize and not I think. When I say I realize, I have to realize something that already exists.
Oh.
When I say I think, it feels like I have to think about this now. So it comes across as an effort. Realization can actually be more natural.
True.
So
True.
that's the
True.
primary difference between affirmations and when then statement. That in when then statement, you can use negatives also if that helps you. And
Hmm.
second, that there is a very precise understanding of when that thought needs to be triggered.
Hmm. True. True. And what if instead of a statement in my head, I see a picture, like an image? So we were talking about getting up in the morning, right? So what instead of the thought 10 minutes more, I see my blanket.
All right. So in that case, instead of using when then statement,
Hmm.
you can use another process which is called SWISH, which is an NLP process. Okay. While this can be
Hmm.
done in any senses, I'm just giving you an example of a visual sense
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
the thought that you're talking about is not a verbal thought in this case, it's more of a
Hmm.
visual thought,
Hmm. Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So the way to work with this is think of the current image that you have
Hmm.
uh, when the alarm rings in the morning.
Hmm.
And as you mentioned, the current image is of the blanket and the bed,
Hmm.
right? Now
Hmm.
think of another image that you would like to have in your mind. That the moment the alarm rings, I would like to have this image in my head. And if I can see this image in my head, then I would
Hmm.
surely get up. What would that image be?
So that dress that we were talking about?
Yeah. So when you fit
Yeah.
into that dress,
Yeah.
Perfect. So think of an image where you're fitting into the dress and you're looking really good.
Hmm.
Right? Now the process is actually simple. Once you have poached the old image and the new image,
Hmm.
let's quickly do this so that you can also understand this,
Hmm.
you can also explain this, right? So
Hmm.
just close
Hmm.
your eyes
Hmm.
and then imagine a canvas in front of you.
Hmm.
You know how we paint on a canvas? So a blank canvas.
Yeah.
And on top of it, you notice
Hmm.
the old image covering the entire surface of the blanket and the bed.
The blanket. Okay. Okay.
Correct? And somewhere
Hmm.
in the corner, you notice a dot, which is another image, which
Hmm.
represents you fitting into the dress.
Hmm.
And then as I say 1, 2, and 3, and I snap my finger,
Hmm.
you will notice the bigger image will shrink and become as small as a small dot, and the
Hmm.
dot will expand and cover the entire canvas. One,
Hmm.
2, 3, swish, open your eyes.
Hmm.
Okay. And then close your
Hmm.
eyes again
Hmm.
and think about waking up early in the morning and let me know what thought comes to your mind, what image comes to your mind.
Mm, okay, so they are both like merging, kind of. So they're like blurred. Both are there.
Perfect. So what I want you to do is now keep both these images the way they
Hmm.
are on the
Hmm.
canvas,
Hmm.
and somewhere in the corner is that small dot that represents the new image completely of you fitting into the dress.
Hmm.
And you know the process now, right? So 1, 2, 3, swish, open your eyes. And now close your eyes and think about waking up. What image comes to your mind?
Hmm. Okay, so the blanket is gone,
Hmm.
and so this one is like it's there, but it's small. The dress, me in that dress.
Perfect. So still keep the
Hmm.
way it is right now, the one
Okay.
that you can see now.
Hmm.
And then that small dot again, which represents the new image.
Hmm. But it will be the same image.
Correct, but it will cover the canvas completely this time when you
Okay.
zoom in,
Okay.
when it
Okay.
expands,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
And this time, when I say 1, 2, and 3, it will expand to an extent that it will cover the entire image, the entire
Okay.
canvas. One, two,
Okay.
three, switch now. Open your eyes.
That's interesting.
And then check again, one last time. Just close your eyes.
Hmm.
Works?
Yeah. Now it's like filled up the entire canvas.
Brilliant. Now, tomorrow when we come for the next episode,
Hmm.
I want you to tell me what happened about waking up.
Okay.
Okay. And
Yeah.
another thing that you can do is just before sleeping, once again think
Hmm.
about waking up in the morning and check what thought comes to your mind. If the old image comes, then just run the process again and then go off to sleep.
Okay. The
Right?
same thing that we just did.
Correct. So you can do it on your own, and this is very effective simply because it's quick. You can do it at
Hmm.
your own pace, and you can do
Hmm.
it as and when you need to do it.
Hmm.
Right?
Okay.
Now, this was an example of switching two images. Right?
Hmm.
Earlier,
Hmm.
we spoke about one thought. There are times when people also have two thoughts.
Hmm.
For example, they have a thought. A lot of people would say when the alarm rings in the morning, I have this soft voice telling me 10 more minutes, and there's
Hmm.
this loud voice telling me, wake up. You're going to get late. It's almost like my father is shouting at me in my head.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Okay? And yet the child in me wins and I continue sleeping for 10 more minutes.
Hmm. Hmm. Right.
Right? Now, in that case, you can again use a swish. The only difference will be you will do it with volume. So you can close your eyes, think about the soft voice and
Hmm.
the loud voice. The soft voice telling you 10 more minutes, the
Hmm.
loud voice telling you wake up.
Hmm.
And then, as mentally as you think 1, 2, 3, you notice the
Hmm.
volumes change. The louder voice now tells you
Hmm.
sleep 10 more minutes. And the softer
Hmm.
voice tells you चल उठ जाते हैं.
Oh.
And repeat the process with yourself till again when you think about waking up, the softer voice is actually telling you चल उठ जाते हैं, and the louder voice is telling you sleep. You need to sleep now. 10 more minutes. And then see what happens the next day when the alarm rings.
Oh my God. This is. Like such an eye opener. So instead of fighting now, we are using what the mind is already doing.
Correct.
Are we? Oh my God. This is brilliant. Great. And can you do a similar thing with meditation? Is that what people do in meditation?
So there are different kinds of meditations technically, and each
Hmm.
meditation serves a different purpose. Some
Hmm.
meditations may help you do this,
Hmm.
while some may not. So it's kind of difficult to answer that question unless we talk about a specific meditation. That said,
Hmm.
as you know that we already have a complete episode dedicated to meditation in the coming days.
Hmm.
So we would talk about meditations, different kinds of meditations, uh, how some meditations can actually create more problems when you do it in the wrong state, and
Hmm.
what you need to be careful about it. All of that are
Hmm.
questions that we will address in that particular episode. So I'll probably park that question for that episode.
Okay. Okay. Great.
Okay.
So far,
So,
yeah.
so,
Sorry.
so,
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
you spoke about meditation, and a lot
Hmm.
of times in meditations we are analyzing our thoughts, I'm going to
Hmm.
cover one quick more technique about thought management.
Okay.
Uh, so a lot of times people will tell you that I'm stuck with a particular negative thought which bothers me.
Hmm.
Okay? The problem is not the negative thought. The problem is that you're stuck with that thought.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So rather than trying to distract yourself when you have
Hmm.
that negative thought in your mind,
Hmm.
see if you can carry on a conversation with yourself in a way in which you can you can change the thought into something more positive. So, for example, if I have a thought right now that, oh, I'm all alone in my house, I'm stuck.
Hmm.
Okay? Now, if I keep thinking this in my head, it is going to bother me.
Hmm.
Okay? And even if I try to distract myself by watching TV or something, this thought is still playing in my mind in the background,
Yes. Keeps coming back.
right? It's almost
Hmm.
like that music that gets stuck in your head because you're not able to find the next line.
Hmm. 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 Hmm.
You know, interestingly, when a song is stuck in your head,
Hmm.
the easiest way to make it unstuck
Hmm.
is listen to the song completely.
Hmm.
And once your mind becomes aware of the next set of sentences that are going to be there in that song,
Hmm.
the song becomes unstuck. Becomes unstuck.
Hmm.
It's
Okay.
playing over and over in your mind because the mind is trying to figure out what next, and it's not able to remember what next.
Oh. Okay.
It's the same thing about thoughts. When we are stuck with the thoughts, we are stuck with the thoughts because the mind does not know what next after this, and we are not able to carry on a conversation to go to the appropriate ending.
Oh.
Okay? So when I have this thought in my head that I'm in the house and I'm all alone and I'm stuck, and
Hmm.
when I ask myself, all right, so I'm stuck. Now what do I do? And then I tell
Hmm.
myself, Pata nahi. And I say, all right, so if I had to do something to pass my time, what would be the best way to pass my time? Maybe I can sit and plan and start working on certain things. And now
Hmm.
that I have this thought in my head, that I can
Hmm.
plan on certain things, I can work
Hmm.
on certain things, I can ask myself, what can I act on?
Hmm.
Which makes it
Hmm.
like more specific, right? And I
Hmm.
say, chill, let me give a call to my friends, let me catch up with my friends.
Hmm.
And then I distract myself to do something else. Now I'm distracting myself at a place where a negative thought is not in my head,
Hmm.
or a thought that bothers me is not in my head,
Hmm.
right? This is at times all that you need to do.
Hmm.
I had a client, interestingly, some
Hmm.
years back, and she
Hmm.
had come to me with suicidal tendencies. And she said that I get so worried because I have these thoughts that I'll kill myself.
Hmm.
Okay? We did the first session and so on. And after that, when she came for the second session, she looked visibly relieved. And technically, in the first session, I had not done anything actually. We had just sat
Oh.
and had a conversation. So I asked her
Okay.
what changed. And
Hmm.
she said, I had an interesting conversation with my brother.
Hmm.
My brother told me that even I have those thoughts at times that I
Hmm.
should kill myself. So she
Hmm.
says, so that, doesn't that bother you? He says, no, because the moment I have that thought, maybe I should kill myself, I realize kya bakwas kar raha hu. I'm smarter than that.
Hmm.
And he says, in the moment I have that thought, I
Hmm.
realize, yeah, I had a thought, but I'm not going to act upon it. So, theek hai. And she said,
Hmm.
when I heard my brother saying this to me,
Hmm.
I realized yes, it's true that when I have this thought in my head that I need to kill myself, if I just remind myself that's a ridiculous thought.
Hmm.
I can do something more interesting with my life.
Hmm.
Right? It stops bothering me. And she says, so it's funny that it's not that the thoughts have stopped for me. I
Hmm.
still, because of the certain circumstances that I'm in, I
Hmm.
still have those thoughts, but they are no longer as powerful. Matlab, it's like that I'm in charge of those thoughts now
Hmm.
because I know where to end them.
Hmm. Hmm. True. True.
Yeah?
So instead of
And
fighting those thoughts, you're either so you can simply start having a conversation with you, right? So instead of trying
correct.
to suppress it, right? That's smart.
And the idea is to have a conversation in a way in which you can bring it towards a more comfortable uh, direction.
Hmm. Hmm.
Right? Matlab, you are not having a conversation in your head to define what is the worst case scenario that will happen, and then you keep magnifying it.
Hmm.
Unless you're magnifying it to an extent where it becomes kind of funny and ridiculous, then that's a separate issue, which is also a good strategy.
Okay.
Okay, it's like me saying that I'll be all alone and I'm stuck. And then what
Hmm.
is the worst that can happen? I'll die. And then what will happen after I die? I'll go to hell. And then what will happen if I go to hell? People will realize that I've gone to hell and they'll laugh at me. And then what will happen because of that? People will go on to Facebook Live talking about Nitin has gone into a hell. And then international news channels will run that. So you're making it so exaggerated that at one point you realize, wait, this is like ridiculous.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Right?
Hmm.
But this would require an amount of skill. So
Hmm.
generally, just carrying on a conversation with yourself so that you can take it towards a positive flip is a good enough idea.
Hmm. True. That's interesting. Really interesting. Okay. So far we've been talking about thoughts,
Correct.
right? What about emotions? How do we manage that?
So in most cases,
Hmm.
thoughts lead to emotions. So once you learn to manage your thoughts, generally speaking, a lot of
Hmm.
your emotions can also be managed.
Hmm.
Okay, that's one way. Having
Hmm.
said that, there are situations where over the years, the new
Hmm.
emotion has literally become like condition.
Hmm. Hmm.
Right? It's like I look at my boss's face and I
Hmm.
immediately feel angry.
Hmm.
Right? I don't even have to think what he has done. At times, I realize later on that abhi to sudhar gaya hai. He has
Hmm.
improved. But
Hmm.
that feeling is really so, matlab, it's just spontaneous. I don't even have to think about it. It's there.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's like a conditioned emotion.
Hmm.
In which case, a good process to follow is actually to think about the exact opposite emotion that you would rather like to experience.
Okay.
So in this
Okay.
case, let's say calmness,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And then think about a situation in the past where you've experienced that calmness.
Any situation.
Any situation where the calmness was really strong.
Okay. Okay.
Okay? And then go back to the current emotion, which is in this case anger,
Hmm.
and rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. How angry do you feel when you look at your boss's face?
Say 7, 8.
So let's take 7,
Okay.
right? Now, if the level of anger is 7, pick up
Hmm.
a memory for calmness, which is at least
Hmm.
10. To ensure that you're at least the positive emotion is at least 2 or 3 ratings higher than the negative emotion.
Okay. Okay.
Okay? And then quickly, so let's just do this. Can you think of someone that you experience anger towards at a level of 7?
Yes.
All right. So, and can you think of a past memory where you've experienced calmness at its peak, like 10 on 10?
Yes. Yes.
So,
Yeah.
if I were
So
to
from one of my past vacations.
perfect. So, if I were to ask you to close your eyes and think about the vacation, would you be able to think about the vacation?
Yeah.
And as you think about the vacation, just allow the vacation to play in your mind. Notice the
Hmm.
sense of calmness that you were experiencing in that vacation.
Hmm.
Maybe even notice your breath becoming a bit deeper,
Hmm.
more rhythmic. And as you continue thinking about that particular vacation, there would be a particular point in that vacation where you will
Hmm.
notice that the calmness was at its peak.
Hmm.
It was like really strong.
Hmm.
Now, just notice where in your body were you experiencing that calmness.
My chest somewhere.
And if I were to ask you to give it a color, what color would you give it?
Pink.
And allow that pink color to spread to all parts of your body? Would you be able to allow it to spread from your chest to your neck, to your head, to your shoulders, to your stomach, to your leg, all across your body?
Hmm.
So just quickly allow that pink colored calmness to spread to every cell of your body. And notice that calmness becoming like really strong.
Hmm.
And while keeping your awareness on this sense of calmness that you're feeling in your body and that
Hmm.
pink color which is completely covering you,
Hmm.
think about the face of that person that makes you feel angry at a level of 7. And notice this pink color vibrating even more vividly in your body. And that
Hmm.
sense of calmness becoming stronger. And literally think about that particular person in 3 or 4 different situations in your life where you will get to meet him or her, interact with them, where earlier you would experience anger when you would see their face.
Hmm.
And notice how, with this sense of calmness that you're experiencing right now, and with this sense of pink color that is there in all parts of your body, how are you feeling while you look at their face?
Hmm.
Better?
So in one of the situation, it's I'm normal, like there's no anger, but in another, I'm actually sitting and laughing with him.
Brilliant. Perfect. And notice yourself even in a situation where you're having a discussion where both of you have a different point of view. And yet notice this pink color really vibrating and spreading in every cell of your body and that sense of calmness being there.
Hmm.
Now tell me what happens. How are you feeling?
So yeah, I'm feeling good. In fact, I have this thought in my head ki sometimes his feedback is, actually worth listening to. It's just that because I've already made up my mind of not listening to him,
Perfect.
I get angry at
Brilliant.
anything he says.
Brilliant. Right? And now when you imagine that, does it make it easier for you?
Yeah,
Are you able to handle that situation better?
I think I will be.
Perfect. So slowly just bring both your hands together, rub them, bring them closer to your eyes, feel the warmth in your eyes, and open your eyes.
That was amazing. How do you do
Brilliant.
that?
And so how do you do that is what I've done is actually not too difficult. The key thing to keep in mind is that the emotion that you're trying to change,
Hmm.
okay,
Hmm.
needs to be at least 2 or 3 points weaker in terms
Hmm.
of intensity as compared to the new emotion that you are making use of.
Okay. Okay. But what if the emotion is really high, like even higher, like I said, 7? What if it's even more intense?
So in which case it will be a good idea to actually
Hmm.
visit a therapist and work with
Okay.
a therapist. Okay, that is
Okay.
one. That said, let's say you're
Hmm.
talking about something that you need to do in that moment. So let's say I look at my boss. I know that I'm going to feel angry. I'm going to feel very angry,
Hmm.
and I can't go to a therapist before I'm meeting a boss right now.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Can I do something when I'm meeting my boss to let go of that anger? Because even thinking about that boss is making me angry right now.
Hmm. 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 Hmm.
In that case, the easiest thing to do is just close your eyes,
Hmm.
think about the boss, think about the anger.
Hmm.
Okay. Right now, probably pick up someone else because you have just worked
Hmm.
with calmness. So I don't
I
think that
was
anger
about
will
to
come up
say that
from.
I'm not getting it now.
Correct.
So
So
we'll
then
have
maybe
to.
if you want to do it, then think about someone else.
Hmm.
And as you think about that person, allow that anger, notice that anger coming up.
Hmm.
Again, make a note of where in your body do you notice that anger.
Yeah, somewhere here.
Perfect. And then if I were to ask you to give a color to that, what color would you give it?
It's purple, or almost black.
Almost black. All right. So that purple black color, I want you to observe that purple black color. Inhale through
Hmm.
your nose, exhale through your mouth, and as you are exhaling, blow that purple black color out of your mouth. And as you're inhaling, inhale the color that represents the emotion that you would like to experience in this moment right now. What would that new color be?
So I'll go for the same calmness pink that we used last time.
Perfect. So breathe in through your nose the pink color and breathe out through your mouth that black purple color till that space where you notice the black purple color is completely gone and is replaced by this new pink color. So the purple color is completely out of your system and is replaced by the pink color.
Hmm.
And how are you feeling now?
Lighter.
Lighter. Perfect. So you can slowly open your eyes. Now remember, this is not a resolution. This is literally
Hmm.
a pain relief right now, an emotional relief right now. Uh,
Okay.
if the intensity is very high, you would
Hmm.
still need to preferably go and visit a therapist who can help you understand where is the source of intense anger coming from, and then they can help you guide you in overcoming whatever the challenges are,
Okay.
right? Also, when we are working with managing emotions,
Hmm.
uh, generally because emotions are a result of certain situations, as in there are certain situations that we are in where we
Hmm.
experience these emotions, right?
Hmm.
So while we are working with emotions, it's also very important to work with skills, because
Hmm.
eventually you still have to go and meet the same person and learn to deal with them,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
right?
What we
So
were
while you
talking
work,
about in the first segment
correct.
today.
So
Yeah.
today, right? So while you're working towards changing your emotional state,
Hmm.
also work towards developing the required skills so that you're able to handle the situation better, because only changing your emotional state without having the ability to handle
Hmm.
the situation better will not
Hmm.
really be useful in the long run. So you have to work on both the skill and the state part.
Right. Right. Great. Great. So this can help me, even if the emotion is intense, this will help me manage. Meanwhile, I find a therapist and reach them, and you know.
Correct.
Okay.
Perfect.
Great, great. So, so exactly when, so one is when I realize that, probably the emotion is an 8 or a 9 or a 10 on a scale of 1 to
Mhm.
10.
Mhm.
Are there other situations where, I might have to see a professional? Like, what will be the indicators when I should?
So one is whenever you are in a situation where you feel that the emotion is very intense,
Hmm.
it's a good idea to visit a therapist.
Hmm.
If there's a particular emotion that you're experiencing, like on a constant basis throughout the day.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
So let's say if you're experiencing anxiety all throughout the day for
Hmm.
multiple days, then it's a
Hmm.
good idea to visit a therapist.
Okay.
Okay. Uh, and if you have suicidal thoughts, suicidal tendencies, or if you have like major mood swings, then those are
Hmm.
places where it's a good idea to visit a therapist. Those will be the short indicators that go and visit a therapist first.
Okay. Okay. All right. And so because this is so interesting and almost like miraculous because it happened so quickly. If someone wants to learn these in a a more like at a more advanced level or in a more systematic manner, so can they do that? Is there a way to do so?
So, see, most of the techniques that I've covered today are a part of
Hmm.
the program that we conduct, which is called cognitive hypnotic coaching and psychotherapy, right?
Hmm.
But that is a program meant for practitioners. So, if you're a psychologist, you're a coach, you're a trainer, then this program will make complete sense to you. And
Okay.
also, the advanced parts of this courses require you to have a master's in psychology before you can pursue the disorder parts of the program, right?
Okay.
Uh, but if you are into coaching, training, and therapy, then I
Hmm.
would actually recommend that is the course that you should check out for. Well, just visit
Hmm.
the ICHARS website, which is ichars.com, and you'll be able
Hmm.
to find the appropriate course over there from a practitioner's
Hmm.
point of view.
Hmm.
But if you are looking at improving the quality of your own life, so you're not really looking at becoming a therapist or a coach, and you want to just learn techniques that you can use in your life, right? Then those are things that You can learn in any of the self-help, self-development programs related to hypnosis and NLP. There are many people who conduct those programs. I think we are also planning to come up with some programs on those lines. But don't then look for those self-help programs because they will be useful for you. Practitioners programs are meant for practitioners, matlab, who are serious about making it a part of their career. I'm not able to hear your voice, Mamta.
Yeah, sorry. So now that we've learned in today's episode how we can, work with our own thoughts and emotions, uh, because we were talking about how these are important for goal setting and, accomplishing the larger purpose that we have. So can you kind of connect the dots for us so that it all makes sense? So how can we use what we learned today to do what we were talking about yesterday and day before?
Okay. So yesterday we were talking about managing weight, right? As one of the
Mm,
examples,
yes.
right? So let's take
Yes.
that example itself. In fact, we have already taken that example. So let's say in order to manage weight, one of my tasks is to avoid sweets,
Correct.
and I'm not able to avoid it. Then I can use
Hmm.
when then statement to be able to avoid that,
Oh, yes. Right. Right.
right? I can also do something else. I can, so let's say when a lot of people will tell you that when I look at a sweet, I feel a sense of emptiness. If I were to feel content, I
Hmm.
think I would be able to manage,
Hmm.
right?
Correct.
So
Yeah.
experiment. Think about a time in your past where you felt completely content. Again, the same thing that I did, where you imagine that time and then you allow that feeling to really spread, give it a color. And with that color, with that feeling in your mind, we are
Hmm.
already feeling completely content. Now
Hmm.
imagine a piece of sweet in front of you and see what
Hmm.
happens.
Hmm.
Because you're already feeling content, the chances
Hmm.
that you will want to eat too much of it actually comes down dramatically.
Yeah. Right.
Right? So the idea of using these techniques is with goal setting, goal accomplishment for every task that we mentioned in the goal setting episode,
Hmm. In the plan of action that we made, right?
in the plan of action. Correct. So in the plan of action, every step that was incorporated as a part of plan of action,
Hmm.
check which of those steps you're not able to take because of your mental state.
Okay. Which can be either a thought or an emotion.
Correct. And for
Okay.
each of those tasks that
Hmm.
you're not able to do because of your thoughts and emotions,
Hmm.
use the appropriate process that we have spoken about.
Okay. So I
Do
can
it for a
create a
couple of days
when.
and see
So
the
let
result.
let me just. So I can create a when then statement if I am already experiencing it. So I can do that. The way we blew the color out of the mouth while inhaling, exhaling.
Correct.
Mm, I could have a conversation with myself.
Correct.
And if it is an emotion, then I can do. Is there a name for the technique that we did in which I imagined the color of the good emotions or the required emotion spreading?
So it's basically a variation of anchoring.
Okay, okay. So we can use that if an emotion is preventing me from carrying out a task, right?
Correct. Correct.
Great.
And if it's very intense and you're feeling it while you are doing the task, then you can blow it out. And blowing out through color is just one example. I know of people who use balloons to blow out, imaginary balloons to blow out those emotions. A lot of people also blow it out in the balloon and in their imagination will burst the balloon. So it also
Oh,
gives them the sound effect, ki, ha, we have broken it, we have bursted it.
oh, interesting. Interesting. Very. Okay. So I would request everyone who's tuned in to try these techniques for any thoughts and emotions that you've been struggling with and you would like to manage them or change them. And let us know how it works for you. I just experienced a few of them and they are truly remarkable. It's like amazing. And for any other questions, leave comments for us. We'll help you, navigate and find the answers. Nitin, those were some really interesting processes and techniques that we can apply in our own lives to achieve what we want. And as Nitin mentioned, tomorrow we are going to talk about love and relationships. I'm sure that's going to be a very, very interesting episode for most of us. And I'm already looking forward to it after today's episode. Thank you, Nitin. I hope we have been able to answer everyone's questions. So thank you so
Brilliant.
much
So thank
for
you
being.
everyone. for being here, for watching this episode. Please share it in your network, because
Yeah.
I'm sure there are a lot of people in the situation today who can benefit from
Mm.
especially this particular episode that we have done.
Yes.
Also, if you could spread the word by helping people understand about the other videos that we have done and the other topics that we are going to take in the coming days, that will be
Mm.
extremely useful and extremely nice. Thank
And while
you.
you're watching these, you can also start watch parties on your Facebook accounts. That's an interesting way of spreading the word.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Nitin. Thank you, everyone. Bye
Thank
bye for
you. Okay.
tonight.
Bye bye. Take care.